Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 52 Coffees podcast. I'm Cindee Williams, your host, and thank you so much for showing up today. Every week, I either interview extraordinary women or I talk to you about things that are important in our life. I like to think of life as living an exceptional life where we advance daily towards achieving our dreams. What are you doing to move yourself forward in life? Before we get started, I want to tell you that 52 Coffees podcast is sponsored by Lead My Life, which is a dynamic community and coaching platform for women who are really just ready to unlock the life of their dreams. And they need some community, connection, coaching, and change in order to get there. And we bring it. So go visit leadmylife.com if you want to know more. But today, let's talk about you. Today, we're going to talk about stretching ourselves. Ooh, that hurts, doesn't it? Just even the concept of stretching. We'd like to move right to the good stuff and not think about stretching yourself. So last Wednesday, I did our monthly mastermind with the Lead My Life ladies. And we were going over the law of the rubber band and discovering how we might be able to stretch into our potential. What areas are we holding back? What areas are we resisting because we know that stretching hurts, right? And so I ask you right now, I'm going to ask you, what areas in your life have you lost tension? Have you lost tension? Growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you want to be. That's what John Maxwell says. That starts from the law of the rubber band. So, where in your life are you losing that tension? Is it in your finances? Maybe you started off in January and you were like, okay, this year I'm going to get the debt paid off. This year I'm going to make a plan. This year I'm going to be intentional. And my goodness, we are in the 10th month of the year. And it's easy to let the foot off the gas. It just is. But what happens when you're driving down the freeway and you let your foot off the gas? We slow down, we stall out, right? We got to get our foot back on the gas again, or we're going to get an accident. We're going to crash and fail, right? But we don't want to do that with our lives. We want to keep the tension there. Another thing that I learned in Maxwell's book, High Road Leadership, is this concept that humility is living our lives between success and failure. Think about that. That's a constant tension. And we're sitting on top of the mountain peak, right? On the mountaintop and our goals. And we can't just go from success to success to success. Because if we do that, we're going to learn what it feels like real quick to fall off that mountaintop, and we're not going to know what to do. We don't want to live on the mountaintop, and we don't want to live stuck in failure. We want to have that humility that's constantly learning, that's constantly wanting to move forward, learn more, to grow every day, to keep the tension, to keep the foot on the gas, to keep the rubber band in launch mode. Where are you losing tension in your life? And then don't leave it there. Don't just identify that place without asking why. Why have I lost tension there? Why is it 10 months into the year and I lost my original goal? I lost sight of it. Why? Identify it now. Identify it now in 2024, October, so that going into 2025, you can pick it up again and take off. And I'm going to talk to you about how we can stretch ourselves to grow, how we can learn to enjoy that process because we are looking forward to who we are going to be. All right. Next part. Let's talk about this law of the rubber band. Why do we need to continue to stretch? Well, I like to think of life as this rubber band ball. And if you're watching, you can see the rubber band ball. But if you're listening, just imagine the rubber band ball that you get at the office supply store, right? It's just this big wad of rubber bands. And when we think of life like that, all the things that we want to do, all the dreams, that book we want to write, right? That career we want to have, those finance goals that we want to achieve, the healthy lifestyle, right? Maybe it's a number on the scale. All of those are wrapped in to our rubber band ball of life. But we can't accomplish all these things all at once. We can't. We become overwhelmed. And when we become overwhelmed, it's a sign that we have too many choices in our life. And we have to eliminate, we have to prune. So, what I recommend is taking one rubber band off at a time, one rubber band, and then start to stretch it out. And that stretching is you learning, it's reading, it's listening to podcasts, it's going to events, it's surrounding yourself by people who are wanting to go where you're wanting to go, right? And then surrounding yourselves with people who have already been there and are doing it at a really high level. It's following them. It's putting them in front of you. It's taking this one rubber band and stretching it out with all your learning, with all your growing, with all your everyday blood, sweat, and tears steps. And then in the end, launching it and letting it fly. But once we launch, we can celebrate that and recognize it and go, woohoo, great job. But then we take another rubber band off and we start again. We start again. We don't want to let our foot off the gas. We want to keep moving forward and keep growing, because think of the impact that you were created to make with your one precious life. What rubber band are you holding right now that has lost a little tension? What area in your life have you let the foot off the gas? And then commit to stretching yourself. I'm going to ask you, are you willing to change? Because sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're not willing to do the hard work. And maybe we would need to get to a place in our life where we are willing. So ask yourself, are you willing to change? And I want you to answer that before I tell you what my acronym is for change. What does that mean? Change to me means consistent habits allow new growth experiences. If you want to grow, if you want to move into that new career, if you want to take a hold of your healthy life, if you want to take a hold of your finances, if you want a better marriage, if you want better relationships with your kids, if you want to build connections and friendships in your midlife years, if you want to do that, you need to form consistent habits that allow new growth experiences. What habits do you need to develop that will stretch and grow you? In James Cleary's book, Atomic Habits, I love how he talks about habits are neither good nor bad. All right. Because normally we think about, oh, that's a really good habit. A morning routine is a great habit to form, right? And smoking is a bad habit. But habits are behaviors. Habits are simply behaviors. We don't need to label them good or bad. Continuing in those behaviors day after day after day will get you a result. Is that result going to move you forward in life, or is it going to hold you back? That's really what it is. That's what habits are. It's that continuous day by day by day, every day. Taking the baby steps, the 1,000 steps that will eventually lead to the result. Are you creating the habits right now that will get you to where you want to go? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to do it? It's hard work. It's discipline. One of the biggest things that I start with in Lead My Life with my ladies in the program is we start calling out our routine. What are you doing consistently on a daily basis? And there's no judgment here because I've seen it, I've done it, all the things, right? I'm still working. I'm a work in progress. We all are. We all have areas where we need to grow. But think about you. What are the daily things that you are doing right now consistently every single day that are moving you forward in life? Those could either be good or bad. They're simply behaviors that are going to get you a result. Are you getting the results that you want in your life? Think about that. Well, here's the power of stretching. You decided that, I am willing to change. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he heard my cry. God hears our cries. The amazing thing is that when we are willing to be stretched, when we raise our hand and say, yes, I want to change. I am willing to do the hard things. I am not going back, right? There's no other option for me except to change. I'm willing to develop the consistent habits that allow new growth experiences. When we are willing to be stretched, God equips us with everything that we will need. In fact, he has already equipped you with everything that you will need to move forward in your life and get the results that you were created to do. What holds us back? Why are we resisting being stretched? It's a huge why that we need to get to the bottom of. Why do we resist the change? I think sometimes we get set into these comfy zones in our life. The robe and the slippers, and we get comfy. And it sounds like a lot of hard work to move out of our comfy zones. Who wants to get out of the warm bed on a cold morning, right? Who wants to take off their robe and the slippers and go out there into a cold, hard, divisive world, right? Who wants to do that? But if we are willing to change, if we want to be stretched, if we want to grow, if we want to expand our world, if we want to create maximum impact in our life and in those around us, we need to get out of our comfy zones. So if you are having trouble identifying those in our life, and I feel like we all have comfy zones, right? We all have things that we need to change in our life. Then I invite you to do what I call reflect, reset, and renew. Reflect. Glance back. Take a look back on your last 90 days of your life. What things were comfortable? What things did you really work on to move forward? Look back to see what 20% of your activities got you 80% of your results. My husband and I, at the end of every quarter, we schedule on the calendar back in December, before the year even begins, we schedule 4 times a year to get away. And we started this about 4 years ago. And at first it was maybe a weekend or maybe a week sometimes. But now it's very extended times that we go away. We work really hard for 90 days and then we go away and we do this reflect, reset, and renew. And it is powerful. So this last September, October, we had about 3 weeks and we went to the cabin in Pagosa Springs. And we were reflecting, resetting, renewing. We were also working. We had 2 weeks in there that we were really, doing Zoom calls and working and doing a lot of research. And then 1 week that we were really trying to be still and reflect. And what came out of that was so powerful because I was starting to recognize, wow, I'm working really hard in this one area of my life. Like I'm really pouring all this into this one aspect of my business, of my company. But it's not yielding any results, really. I'm not getting really any results from it. Why am I putting so much effort into this area when it's not getting me the results? And I started to think over the last 90 days, July, August, September, what were the actions, the 20% of actions that got me the most results? And I was able to pinpoint it. For me, It's going out into the community. It's meeting with people. It's connecting. That is how I get the majority of my results. So I need to be doing more of that. So what about for you? What 20% of your activities, Pareto principle, are you doing that is going to yield the maximum impact for you in the remainder of the year and for going forward into 2025? Eliminate what's not working and focus on what is. Focus on what your comfort zones are and how you can burst out through them. Take a few minutes, list what areas you need to stretch in. Pinpoint one thing, one area to stretch. I find one of the best books to read on this is The One Thing. I love the book, The One Thing. It really got me started when I was going in all different directions, just focusing in on one thing that by doing that, everything else around it will become easier or unnecessary. But oftentimes, I find that fear will hold us back, right? Those limiting beliefs, those doubts will hold us back from actually doing what we need to do to move forward in life. So I have an acronym for fear, and this helps me just to stop me in my tracks, right? If I am afraid to move out and do something, maybe I'm afraid to put an event out onto the calendar. Because what if nobody comes? What if nobody shows up? What if I go to all this effort to do what I feel like I'm called to do, what I need to do for my business, and no one shows up? That's fear. That's limiting belief. That's not having confidence in myself. So what do? Fear acronym F. Face it. Turn around, square off with fear, and face it head on and go, what the heck am I so afraid of? Face it. E. Evaluate it. I like to evaluate it in light of scripture, and Philippians 4:8 is perfect for this for me. Whatever's lovely, whatever's true, whatever is praiseworthy. And I really like to focus in on the whatever is true, because I can ask myself, is this really happening right now? If I carry this out to its logical conclusion, is this really true? And most of the time it's no. It's just something that I've worked up in my head and I need to let go of. I need to prune it off and throw it away. It's dead wood. Evaluate it. I like to evaluate it in light of Philippians 4:8, but evaluate it in the light of your circumstances. A, take action on the item. Take one step. I like to say, commit to 3 action items in moving forward towards that one thing. And then start with the next right thing. Start with the next right step for you and move into what you are being called to do. Stop holding back. Don't let fear hold you back, because you'll just stay there. And remember, we want to live between success and failure. Fear will keep you at the bottom rung of the ladder every single time. Act on it. And then once you do that, R is just relax into it. Just like this, just relax into it. Take it on. You're always going to have fear with you. But the more that you face it, the smaller it becomes, and you start putting it behind you. And what you focus on will actually expand. Focus on what you are wanting to accomplish in your life, that one thing right now, the one thing for the next 90 days, and watch it expand. It's absolutely incredible. And the more we focus on that and it's expanding, the smaller and smaller fear gets. Put it to the test. I tell you, it's a good one. Okay, so we're going to face it, we're going to evaluate it, we're going to act on it, and we are going to relax into our fears and watch them shrink behind us. I have something called a rubber band moment. So back to the rubber band ball example. There are life situations where we feel stretched or know that we need to step into being stretched, but we resist the tension. I call this a rubber band moment. Like we have a choice right then and there. We have a choice. Are we going to fight for growth? Or will we just accept where we are right now? Because if you're not willing to fight, if you're not willing to fight for yourself, if you're not willing to step into the ring, to take the next step forward, if you're not willing to focus on what needs to expand in your life, then you are just going to expand or accept it. And you're just going to stay there. You will stay stuck in whatever situation you are in right now. You will be stuck. So you either need to fight for yourself. Are you worth it? Yes, you are, my friend. Yes. Or are you going to accept it? Your rubber band moment. Look at the rubber band. Look at it sitting right there. Imagine it. If you don't have one out in front of you or you're not watching the rubber band, it can either be like this, no tension on it at all, or you can fight for it and start watching the tension and start watching it get ready to launch. Next part, the growth gap. Why does stretching feel uncomfortable? What discomfort are you willing to embrace in order to achieve growth? Think of the person, and maybe this is you. I've had this in my life, who wants to really not just lose weight on scale. That's just numbers. But it wants to finally, once and for all, achieve a healthy lifestyle, the infinite game of health that just keeps going on and on. What discomfort are you willing to embrace to finally achieve the healthiest you? Is it the discomfort of not being able to eat exactly what you want? Is it the discomfort of going to a holiday party and be so focused on the special food that's there that you're not even thinking about the specialness of the event and the people? Is it this discomfort of maybe being a little hungry, trying new things? What discomfort are you willing to embrace in order to achieve growth? Think about it in the light of finances. Are you trying to get out of debt? What discomfort are you willing to embrace in order to be finally free of the financial burden that weighs on you day after day, that you carry with you into your sleep, and it's always there? What discomfort are you willing to embrace to push past those comfort zones? What happens to our growth when we resist? Well, when we start to grow, we're in an upward trajectory, right? But when we start to resist, and we're like, you know what, that's going to make me uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. And we start going for the easy road, we plateau, we flatline. And then we decide again, okay, I'm going to do it. And up we go. And it's this process of growth, resistance, on and on and on. And it takes forever to get to where we want to go. I want you to think about something right now. Think about in the Bible, Moses and the Israelites had a clear path to the Holy Land, right? To the land flowing with milk and honey. A clear path, 7 days. Really, they had everything they needed. God had equipped them from the get-go with everything they needed to move out of slavery and into freedom. But instead, the path that they chose through their own limiting beliefs, through their own doubts, through their own fears, held them back for 40 years. God's journey should have taken 7 days. But because of their resistance, because of their growth, resistance, it took 40 years, lost lives, lost time that they could have been living and experiencing God's best for them. But because they resisted, it took 40 years. Are you willing to fight for your growth? Are you willing to fight for it, to experience some discomfort for your future self? I want you to focus on something. I want you to focus on the benefits of stretching. I know as an athlete, there's huge benefits to stretching, right? It warms up our muscles, it cools them down, it helps prevent injury, and it helps lessen the pain the day after we have a hard workout. There's benefits of stretching. Focus on the blessings that come with stretching. How have you seen the following be true in your life? Our growth, when we commit to it, expands our capacity. And that capacity, that ability to create space in our life so that we can take on new things, that capacity to get rid of all the junk and things that are holding us back, that capacity, that growth opens opportunities for us. I have seen this over and over and over again in my life in the last 6 years when I committed myself to some discomfort, when I committed myself to personal growth and professional growth, when I threw out all the stopping points and there was no way back. That growth opens doors of opportunity that I never even imagined for myself, ever. It was already there. God already knew it, but I was choosing the 40-year route instead of the 7 days that He had for me. And then I'm going to tell you something else. Growth builds resilience. And it makes us strong in our character. And things that would have happened to us maybe a few years back, when we've grown and we've built up that resilience, they don't bother us anymore. We know how to handle it. We know where to go. We have the resources. We have the capabilities within ourselves and within the inner circle that we've developed in order to have the resilience to get through challenges. That's the blessings that come with stretching. So right now, I want you to think about your stretch area, that area that you need to grow, that area that you're resisting, that area that you need to put some tension on to get you moving out and launching into who God created you to be towards maximum impact. What will be the benefits for you for your future growth? What will be the benefits? Write them down. Don't just think them in your head. Write them down onto paper. Having them in our head is one thing, but giving it a voice, writing it down, telling people, gathering an inner circle around you, those things will come upon you faster than you could ever realize. 7 days, 40 years. What do you want it to be? How will your work, faith, in life improve when you allow yourself to be stretched? Think about that. Have that be set in front of you as your goalpost. How will my life improve when I make these decisions to stretch? If you need to, I like practicing a reset button technique. Do you remember the easy button? Remember Staples and the easy button? We just push it and everything would become easier and simpler. Well, we all know that doesn't exist. But when we are able to reflect on relationships, when we are able to reflect on tasks and goals and that need to shift in alignment with our growth, then that reset button is there for us. We've reflected. We know what we need to change. We know what we need to realign. And then we can go ahead and push the reset button and make the change. That consistent habits allow for new growth experiences. Push the reset button. Get rid of the old. Bring in the new. Start those new experiences. Write down what limiting beliefs are holding you back and then replace it right next to it with a truth. Replace it with the truth. What if your limiting belief is, I don't have enough time? I don't know. I don't have enough time to accomplish my dream. What is the truth? I spend an awful lot of time scrolling through social media. I spend 2 to 3 hours a night just vegging out in front of Netflix. Maybe the truth is that you don't have a solid plan. Maybe the truth is you wake up every morning without a plan for your day. And if you were to plan your day, you would have time. So replace the limiting belief that you don't have enough time with the truth that maybe if I planned my time better, maybe if I let go of some of the things that aren't serving me anymore, that I would be able to accomplish my dreams. Every time you have a limiting belief, replace it, do the work to replace it with a truth. So, what are the tools available to you for continuous stretching, which we should do our entire life? I remember my husband's 94-year-old grandmother. She used to sit on the couch. She'd hop up on the couch at 94 years old and sit cross-legged like this, crisscross applesauce. And I was always amazed by that because I'm like, 94-year-old women don't sit like that. They're too stiff and rigid and everything hurts. But she had practiced continuous stretching her entire life. So what tools are available to you for continuous stretching? Number one, come join the Lead My Life program. Learn how to lead you. Learn how to lead your team. Learn how to lead your company. Through strategic coaching sessions, I use DISC behavioral assessment that is so powerful in stretching us. Journaling, reading, learning, listening to podcasts, accountability partners, which is another thing that we do in Lead My Life. What else could you do to put the tools in place to help you stretch? All these are tools to help maintain that tension. What will you put into practice and then commit to it right now? The last thing that I want to talk about, one last point, is what happens when the rubber band snaps? You've had that before, right? You pull the rubber band back and boom, it breaks and ow, that kind of hurts, right? It snaps you right on the skin. The dangers of becoming stagnant or complacent after a season of growth. That's why I don't like to set goals. Goals, sometimes that's that rubber band that we've launched, we've stretched it out, we've launched it, but we didn't pick up another rubber band. We let the rubber band snap. And that allows us just to kind of become complacent and stagnant. I know an example of this is I used to run marathons. I don't ever like to say used to because I could in the future, but the marathons that I have run, you spend 6-8 months preparing for the marathon. And then afterwards, I had 2-3 days of just recovery time. But I knew that if I didn't set up a new goal, if I didn't register for another race, if I didn't have another goal in front of me, I would kind of lose all that fitness that I had. So I made a pact with myself to always maintain a baseline of fitness that I could pick up a marathon. Maybe it was just to be able to run, 9-10 miles on my long days, just so I'd always have that foundation. What are you doing to build that foundation? I call it milestones, not goals, because a runner, we run, I love trail running, so I'd run out into the field and I come up to a mile marker and I make a cairn and put a rock there. And then I run another mile and then there's another rock and I keep stacking rocks, and that's what milestones are. We run, we achieve, we celebrate, and then we move on to the next milestone. There is no finish line. You're not done until you're done. There is no finish line. Live life like that. It's an infinite game. Infinite game. We can keep improving every single day. What actions will you take to prevent snapping back into those old habits you worked so hard to overcome? What will you do? What actions? And this is where, again, that reflect, reset, and renew comes into play, and it's so powerful. So, my friends, I want to encourage you today to stretch yourself, to consider the law of the rubber band, to consider where you are comfortable right now, where you may have taken the foot off the gas, And what can you do right now to identify that, identify any fear, and then be willing to change those consistent habits that allow new growth, experiences? Work into it. If you need my help, reach out to me. I'd love to schedule a call with you. But thank you today for listening, and go grow, my friends. Go grow and stretch yourself. There's such a beautiful, amazing world out there for you. Okay, take care. Have a beautiful week. Bye.